I'm getting older and older. This hair is getting grayer and grayer, and these 30-year-old sharp software developers that we're recruiting, at some point they're going to look at me like their dad, as opposed to some hip recruiter, right? And I think we always, like I said, we always had that goal of like, hey, we got it. At some point, we're going to have to take another leap of faith and find somebody.
Welcome to the Building to Scale podcast, where we bring real entrepreneur stories that showcase the challenges and successes in building and scaling an entrepreneurial business. Our host, Jeff Chastain, is a business transformation coach with Admentis, where he coaches business leaders and their teams with a proven set of principles and tools, helping them gain clarity in and get more of what they want from their business. Make sure to stick around until the end of the show, and we will reveal how you can become our next guest.
Hello, everybody. Jeff Chastain here with Building to Scale podcast, again, where I get the opportunity to talk with business leaders, entrepreneurs, and influencers, really, in a variety of different industries, hearing both their stories of challenges and success as they've grown and scaled their business over time. So today with me, I have Mr. Chip Murphy with CDM Technology out of San Diego. Apparently not quite so sunny San Diego today, but Chip, welcome to the show, and thank you for taking a few minutes out of your time to join us.
You got it, Jeff. Glad to be here. Thanks.
So tell us a little bit more, give us a little bit more background about CDM Technology, who you are and what you got going on these days.
Sure. Yeah. So CDM was spawned by a long-term business partner of mine. We started working together in 2004. We helped start a company in 2005 with 3 other people here in San Diego. And we stayed for about 7.5 years. And it got to the point to where I think it was the perfect amount of time to stay. In addition to, I think we were kind of at the age where, some peers around us, people that we respected, people that we looked up to, and traded ideas off of, essentially kind of said to us, hey, look, you guys have built a very successful practice of your business. You have grown it exponentially, and you make X and the company makes Y, and the delta between X and Y is pretty significant. Have you ever thought about going out and doing this on your own? And there were some extenuating circumstances that kind of made that decision maybe a little easier to make, but there certainly was a challenge, and there certainly was a risk factor of that. And in that came CDM Technology. And I think the biggest thing for us was we didn't need to reinvent the wheel, right? We're an IT consulting, contracting, recruiting company, right? Our clients, both new and long-term, come to us for resources in the IT field that they otherwise can't find themselves. And whether that's a short-term need, whether that's a 9 to 12 to 16-month need, or whether that is, hey, we need to find this person full-time. We've been looking for 3 months and we can't find them. We'll cover all those bases. And here we are in 2021. There's been a lot of bumps and hiccups on the road, but we've certainly grown and had growing pains, but had a lot of successes. And like I said, never looked to reinvent the wheel of what we had always done in the past before.
Now, it makes sense. So were you the prototypical kind of entrepreneur of, hey, I'm going to go build a business from the childhood selling candy bars kind of stuff? Or was this more of an accident, or how'd you get into this?
That is a great question, Jeff. No, the answer is a big fat no. I was the product of 2 teachers growing up. My mom taught the 7th grade and was a counselor, and my dad taught high school economics. And so, maybe I rubbed off a little economic stuff from my dad. But I think the main sort of entrepreneurial spirit was that 7 years working at that company, or 7.5. And we were basically taught to run our own business. And so when the time came, and that aforementioned conversation with peers of, hey, you guys should be doing this on your own, it wasn't that scary to me. And it was a giant leap of faith, but yet to us, it was kind of a small leap because it was like, hey, we don't need to do anything other than what we do. And we can go out and be successful opportunities. So to your point, yeah, it did kind of happen by accident.
Yeah.
These last, since we opened, I call it my master's in business, because you learn all the things. But as I said to your producer, it was never something that was insurmountable. It was never something that I didn't feel like we couldn't handle. And my business partner was fantastic in, hey, look, I'll take this chunk of it and you take your chunk of it. And, we'll intermingle when we need to, but at the end of the day, you do your job, I'll do my job, and we'll make it work. And those pieces to my chunk were never, it was never the trigonometry problem in high school that just, made your brain go sideways, right?
Yep.
It was always something that I could either make a phone call to someone that I knew or something I could research and do on my own. So yeah, it worked out quite well.
Yeah. And that's what I hear a lot, is that it's the, even for those that have a business degree, business college, whatever, it's still like, okay, now you get to the real world of running a business, and it's still, okay, where's the practical side of this? And it's a constant learning journey right there every day, is to, okay, it's starting the company small versus now with I don't know, you said how many employees, but still much bigger company now. And I think you said 3 different offices. So it's a constant evolutionary process there, as to, okay, what's business going to bring today, and what's challenges going to bring today.
You're 100% correct. And it's not unlike, when you're analyzing a 16, 17-year-old, right? Like, oh, he's got real good book smarts, or, hey, he's got real good street smarts, he's going to do just fine. To your point, you could have 2 master's degrees in business and a bachelor's in accounting or finance or what have you. If you don't have, sort of those people skills, those relationship skills, kind of those street smarts, and you can define street smarts however you want them. That's the bulk of your knowledge base as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. And it's one of those that, because I teach a lot of high school kids and stuff in technology side, robotics and things like that. And they kind of look at it and say, well, it's K through 12. As soon as I graduate high school, I'm done with this. I'm done with the learning. It's like, no, you're just getting started here. This is, yeah. If you ever stop, then you're left behind. But it's like, all this is teaching you is how to learn. I know you probably won't ever need to know the biology lesson or even the trigonometry lesson like you're talking, but what it's doing is teaching you how to learn, because whether you're in a small business or big business, life is a constant new learning process here. There's always new things to learn, but especially on the entrepreneurial side, because again, you said your background wasn't business. It's like most of us don't come into this saying, I'm going to go build a business. Most of us have got an idea, a passion, a joy. Hey, we're going to go do this new idea. We're going to solve this problem. And oh, by the way, managing a team of people, managing the structure of the business and things like that come along, and you got to figure out how to do that too. It's not just your main passion, your main lane when you're at the top of the business.
I totally agree. And I think there's one thing I think you do have to have, now that we sit here and talk about it, is you have to have the desire to take on the challenge, right? It's building that kid's playhouse on Christmas Eve, right? When you empty the large box and there's 100 different pieces, you gotta look at that thing and go, I'm gonna take this thing down tonight. Like you have to have that desire and not be scared, if you will, of the challenge. Because I think the guys that chicken out are the guys that look at it and go, gosh, I don't know if I could do this.
Yeah. Oh, no, I agree. And I think that's in some ways almost the embodiment of the entrepreneurial kind of personality, is we're going to go out and solve the world's problems, or at least whatever problem we're facing, kind of a thing right now. That's what we're diving in for. But where I see that runs into problems, and kind of where your company comes into play that we talked about before, is, okay, so you got the early days when the entrepreneur is sitting there focused on their passion, focused on their thing, they're building up their business. But it gets to a point in business, and you guys ran into this with just your founders there, that, okay, we've got to start building this out beyond just us. We've got to start bringing in other resources that are outside of my expertise. So obviously with a staffing firm bringing in outside resources, kind of thing like that, what have you seen or what have you experienced either way in saying, hey, how do we grow out? How do we hand off things that are not our expertise, or just that we have to, honestly, because there's only so many hours in a day?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. We were fortunate enough in the first 4 years of business to experience an extreme amount of growth. And it started to dawn on me in a variety of different ways. Like, hey, guy, you guys are great at what you do. And I'm speaking in the third person, sorry. You guys are great at what you do, but at some point, you got to start thinking about growth, right? And getting stuff to kind of, you're building a really good name for yourself. You're doing yourself a disservice by not expanding and not finding ways to capitalize on that, because I'm getting older and older. This hair is getting grayer and grayer, and these 30-year-old sharp software developers that we're recruiting, at some point they're going to look at me like their dad, as opposed to some hip recruiter, right? And I think we always, like I said, we always had that goal of like, hey, we got it. At some point, we're going to have to take another leap of faith and either find somebody. And the second piece to that is, you don't know what you don't know, and you have to be fully aware of who you are as a company. And so, in our experience, going out and hiring, those college grads 2-3 years out of college that are, young and sharp and aggressive, whatever in our industry, you hire 10 of those people at age, well, not even whatever age, at a few years out of school, you're lucky to bat 200 after 6 to 9 months. And so we knew that we didn't have the time, we didn't have the energy to go out and hire 10 of those people to only have a 2% or a 20% success rate at the end of the day. So we had to target people we've either worked with in the past or people we knew of in the industry. And we were fortunate enough to have a relationship with a resource that, we'd worked for the same company. He'd worked in a completely different market for us, and we'd always remained good friends. And we were real fortunate to bring him on board last year in a time of incredible uncertainty, given the pandemic and where we were in 2020. Heck, we were applying for PPP loans at that point, right? And here we are, talking about hiring 2, 3, 4 people that were going to lead to even more hiring. That today we're over 50. And so like I said, we had to target certain individuals, and so many things have to go right in those hiring processes, right? You're taking one individual who's hugely successful in that market, but a lot of that person's compensation is determined upon their performance, right? And here they are willing to leave something that they're, again, not solely, but largely based on performance, to then start over and basically do it all again. Basically in the kind of the same scenario that we were presented to ourselves way back when we started CDM, of like, hey, let's give some ownership to an individual and let him bet on himself. And so that spawned kind of the growth aspect of what we were talking about of, hey, another entrepreneurial leap of faith and growing your business. And there's all wide varieties, and we certainly haven't done it 100% correct, but we're doing okay, today from a business perspective.
So what do you see as really kind of those challenges, obviously from your perspective, or even from your clients, as to why they're hesitant or struggling to delegate and to bring on additional resources at that point?
Well, I think the good thing for us is that the types of resources that our clients are leaning on us for are sort of recession proof, right? Because whatever it is that you, as a company who could be one of our clients, is selling, right? Whether it's a product, a widget, a piece of software, a service, what have you, you need technology no matter what, right? Whether it's a necessary evil or whether it's just purely based upon your success rate as a company, the types of resources that they can't find themselves, they can't live without as well, right? And so the challenge then becomes finding the really good people for them. And a lot of companies out there right now, as my business partner would tell you, they're doing whatever they can to hold on to those employees. And so we've seen some retention strategies, some retention rates from companies is insane in terms of, what they're doing to keep these people. So that makes our job even harder to recruit those people away to go work for a different company. I hope that answers your question.
Oh, it does, but still. So I'm curious, I hadn't ventured down that way with anybody else from a staffing perspective before. What are you seeing from a recruitment standpoint, or from a retention standpoint, on that front? Because a lot of times business leaders will be kind of hesitant really to invest in training and things like that. If I put too much into this person, whatever, they may leave. Whereas to me, that's almost counterproductive. It's like, okay, why would you want them to be not trained and on your staff rather than trained and on your staff and run the risk to leave? But with that kind of mentality in mind, if I'm pouring all these resources into my team, what are you seeing these days in terms of a retention that's causing them to potentially stay there? Is it everybody always assumes, hey, they're paying more, so they're going to keep them just based upon salary? Is that what you're seeing? Or are you seeing other things that are potentially more important or different than salary?
Yeah, well, it's funny you say that. There's a few different reasons, and that there's certainly some highlights to that. One is money, right? Money is always the common denominator in helping retain employees. The other major one, and this has become sort of a cruel irony, is that 16, 18, 24 months ago, my business partner and I were sitting down with long-term clients of ours. And again, whether they were VPs of technologies or CFO, bean counter types. And these companies that wanted to, hey, we just got this fancy new office space, and, we're creating a culture here and a vibe, and we want people here, 5 days a week, and we're having all these perks, et cetera. And a real common trend in the IT industry was the ability to work from home. And some of our best resources out there were starting to say to us, hey, I'll look for a new job, right? People that we target, people that we knew of, or people that just came to us and had fantastic backgrounds. And things that we would see them say is, yeah, I'll leave, but I want to work 3 days remote, right? I'm just as productive as I am. In fact, I'm probably more productive out of the office than I am in the office. And we spent so much time, just beating this into clients like, hey, start developing an infrastructure to where you can have some remote people. And we tried to create all the highlights of reasons why, some of which I'll get to. And here we are in a pandemic that starts in 2020. And all these companies are now, if you hadn't built an infrastructure for remote people, you were forced to.
Yeah.
And suddenly you had all of these, again, VP, finance, what have you, saying, my gosh, we're 5-6 months into this. We're just as productive as we were before. And I'm not paying $475 a square foot, or I am paying it. And gosh, I really wasn't. I hope I wasn't paying it. And so now they're starting to take the strategy of, hey, we're going to, cut our office space in half, and we're just going to do half and half, when we do come back. The irony is that all these software folks that wanted to work those 3 days a week at home, who now got 5 days a week to work from home and were so productive, but also now have kids going to school at home or have a significant other there at home, they can't wait to get back to the office. So, it's a long way of answering your retaining question, but you're starting to see that is become a strategy in and of itself of, hey, either we're good, you can work from home the entire time. We don't care where you are. You could be, we could be a San Diego based company. You could be in Idaho or Mammoth Mountain. Or we can also build, another company could say, hey, we're coming back to work. We can't wait. You can't wait either. Right. So, again, you just kind of all throw those in one big bowl of challenges to try to find these resources. And And retaining people, again, money's probably the biggest one, but now you have all these different factors of the ability to work from home, or the ability to come into an office, whatever those people prefer. So it's a challenge, and it's a big one, but it's something we just got to fight through, because the business is always going to be there.
It's going to be there, but it's always going to be changing too. But I like where you're coming at is basically saying, okay, defining what your culture is. Maybe your culture, and so I talked to a software development company here a couple of weeks ago that, yeah, they complete work remote. There's never been an office, anything. And that's just their kind of defined persona. It doesn't necessarily say that's wrong or right, but that's just the way they are. And therefore they're going to attract talent that wants that's used to working from home, saying, hey, I want to work 5 days from home. I don't want to drive into an office, versus they won't necessarily attract the talent that says, hey, I want the water cooler conversations. I want to be right there in the war room with all the team, et cetera there. So to me, it's just more a case of defining out what your company is, what your culture is going to be, and hopefully build that such that you attract the right people, and therefore they're going to want to be there in addition to their pay rate at that point. Because that's
100%. Couldn't agree. And I'll tell you, the smart ones are the ones that are already thinking ahead for 2 years now and three years down the road, because that, like, to your point, that'll change. It'll go back, it'll cycle again. And the smart ones are going to be the ones that have already, either negotiated office space or, planned ahead from having certain people in the office, certain people out of the office, or what have you. But again, those smart companies out there, the people that are thinking 5-6 steps ahead for when the cycle changes again, I think are the ones that are going to be real successful as well.
No, it makes sense. And yeah, to your point, I've even seen and interviewed several different businesses here locally, just in the Dallas area, that, yeah, they actually, one was another staffing firm for that matter, had the big downtown office kind of a thing. And once they effectively got forced to work from home, they're sitting there looking at it saying, why are we paying this much money for big downtown office space when we can do this all remote? But it really depends upon your team. So it's going to be an interesting, I think, probably even in the next 3 or 4 months, once things start opening back up again, it's like, okay, are we all going to rush back into the office, or is some of this going to stick around? And I think it's going to depend on the company by company basis, but it'll be interesting to see how things shake out for sure.
Yep, absolutely.
So talking about future, looking forward, what does the future look for CDM? What are you guys looking at from your plans, growth, scale, et cetera? What's your approach right now?
Well, I think, answering your question earlier a little bit about hey, we kind of had to start thinking ahead and about hiring. And I think this bout of hiring that we went through last year, again, talk about lessons learned. It wasn't that big of it didn't scare us as much as maybe as it initially thought we did. And so with a client of ours that is asking us to fill resources in 6 different locations nationwide, it's really got us thinking, okay, let's create little, sort of offices, for lack of a better way to put it, around these locations. But also, understanding the world that we're living in now, pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, post-pandemic, having that sort of strategy involved. And then again, to the point I made earlier, my business partner and I aren't getting any younger, and we gotta invest some time into, some, at least younger than us, hotshots that want to get in this business and realize that this business can be fun. The staffing world can kind of carry a recruiting world can carry a stigma in certain instances. I think it's pretty easy to get a recruiting job or a business development job within the recruiting industry, and San Diego is kind of a fickle town in the sense we get a lot of people that move from cold weather cities into San Diego, right? Because they want to live in the weather. A lot of them aren't long-term residents though, right? They're 22, 23, 24 years old, post-college. They move to San Diego. They want to live at the beach, but they realize for whatever reason, maybe it's too expensive, maybe it's too far away from home and family, that they can't live here full time, and they end up moving back. But the point I'm trying to make is it's easy to get a recruiting job, and if you push square pegs through round holes, with clients, you can get a bad name, right? You know, company A has a need. Hey, I got a guy, looks great on paper. I'm going to, you know, just shove that person, and, you know, 6 months down the road, that person's not there at that company anymore. And, you know, hey, we just paid this fee to have this person here. And, you know, you can see how it can kind of spiral out of control. We need to hire some folks and spend some time with them and realize, like I said to my point earlier, that this is a business that it's a relationship driven business, and there's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it. And my business partner and I, ever since we started working together, have always focused on the right way to do it. And we want to find other folks out there that want to be in that business and make a good name for themselves in the not only in the immediate space, but in the community as well. Yeah. And so I think that's the goal for us, is finding more like-minded individuals that we can spend time with and train, and take that leap of faith on, and keep growing our business and keep doing what we're doing. We know who we are, right? I've always said that. I think I said that earlier, we're not trying to be anybody that we're certainly not, you know, we're not these, you know, groundbreaking entrepreneurs that are, you know, going to try to go out and start 50 offices and whatever. That's not us. We're not doing it. But there is a place for us. There is a boutique. There is a boutique style for what we do, and that's always kind of been our mentality. And we're trying to find certain individuals and certain resources out there that want to share that vision with us and share that kind of passion for people.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, you don't necessarily, like I said, don't have to follow the path of everybody else, but still the boutique model, and especially, at least in my mind, I've never been in staffing, but working with companies that are using staffing, kind of a thing, that, yeah, there's a culture involved in that yourself. It's like, okay, I like this staffing firm because of the way they work, because they interact, because of the candidates they bring over staffing firm XYZ over here, kind of a thing there. So I get that for sure.
Yeah, it's an interesting business. It's there's a lot of HR professionals out there that quite frankly can't stand a lot of staffing people, and I get it. But you know what? That probably exists in every discipline, right? I'm sure there's doctors out there that can't stand certain medical device salespeople or pharmaceutical people, et cetera, and you kind of have to battle those internal things. But if there's anything I've learned, not only being in the business that I'm in, but owning the business that I'm in, is if you do it the right way and you're consistent with your approach and doing it the right way, people tend to talk, and word kind of travels that, hey, these are two really good guys, and the people that work for them are really good people, and they're going to do it the right way. You know, they're going to own up to when they screw up, and they're not going to dramatize their success. They just kind of, like I said, they just kind of do it the right way. And that's what we're trying to do.
No, that makes sense. So always like to kind of come around and wrap things up at the end, just kind of looking at your journey over the last, what did you say, 7-something years with CDM and several companies before then. What is kind of that best tip, best strategy, something to say that, hey, if I had just known this or just tried this earlier without some of the struggle, some of the bumps that you talked about, what would that come to mind? Anything come to mind there?
Totally. And it's a couple things, but I won't bore you with the little details. One is read, and I don't care what you read. If it's something that makes you laugh, if it's something that you're interested in, if it's a hobby, just find books and read. Every successful person I've known in my life, whether they're a degree or 3 degrees separate from me, they read a book. Or magazines, right? I mean, I got 2 kids. I don't have time to constantly read a book, but I can't wait to read a Rolling Stone article about the GameStop situation that's going on in the stock market right now. So that's one. And I think it's a major one. And the other one, and I'll leave all the other little ones aside, is something I said earlier, is don't be afraid. This is not an insurmountable climb. This is not a wall, rock climbing with no experience. Like, every little challenge that you're going to face it's doable. It's find a resource that you've got. Make friends with somebody who's a really good accountant or a really good lawyer or a really good business person, and use those people and develop those relationships and take them out to lunch every once in a while and grab a cup of coffee with them. Go take them for a beer, whatever it is that you like to do. But keep those relationships healthy, because those people help you. And you'll find that those people will start calling you, or those people will start asking your advice somewhere down the road. And those are some of the best relationships I've had, and some of the, quite frankly, where we are today as a business is I'm just not afraid of very much anymore from a decision-making standpoint, because I've got the resources there to help me.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And it really does come down to having those resources, being able to count on them. And to me, it's, while you've got the big long-term plans, you got to be able to break it down and look at it closer. And once you kind of get that closer view of it, say, hey, here's what we need to accomplish this next quarter or this next year. Yeah, it's much more manageable at that point. Whereas most of the people I see kind of freeze, are looking at the overall big picture and saying, okay, yeah, how in the world are we ever going to get this done? It's like, what's the adage of how do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time. It's like
That's right.
Can do practically anything.
A fork
there.
and a knife.
Yeah, one bite at a time, one piece at a time, kind of a thing there.
Yeah.
But so I like that. Yeah. Well, all right. I appreciate the time and the expertise here. If our listeners want to get more information about you or want to learn more about CDM, where's the best resource for them to head to?
Totally. CDMtechnology.com. And if anybody has any questions, they can certainly reach out, info@cdmtechnology.com. And we'll be more than happy to answer the questions. I'm happy to, if there's a young entrepreneur out there who just wants to bounce stuff off of, like I said, I've got those people in my life, and I'm happy to be that person for someone in their life.
No, great. Yeah. And it's always good. That's what we're always looking at. It's like, it doesn't matter how much of an expert you are or don't feel like you are. There's always somebody a couple of steps behind you that can learn something from you. So great to always have that mentality.
Yep, absolutely. And there's always someone who's 3 steps smarter than you as well.
Yep. So I appreciate the time again, and appreciate the discussion there.
You got it, Jeff. Have a good day, man. Thanks again.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Building to Scale podcast. If you would like to share your entrepreneurial business growth story, please visit buildingtoscale.com/guest. If you got something out of this interview, would you do both us and our guest a favor and share it on your social media accounts? Don't forget to hit subscribe in your player so that you don't miss any future episodes, and make sure to reach out to Jeff Chastain on any of the major social media networks, or check us out at admentis.com.